Hi, I'm Brett Hoffman. I lived in Paducah just all of my growing up life. I was actually born in Dallas in 1960, but we moved back here probably when I was 2. My mom's family was from here. They settled at what you call the Ogden community in northeast Paducah, or northeast Cottle County, that is. And they were farmers and ranchers. My mom was from the Anderson family, who were settlers there in the 1920s and 30s. My great grandfather was George Henry Anderson, who was a large landowner there in Ogden. My dad, actually, he was technically my stepdad, but I really call him my dad because he and my mom married when I was 6, and they're from the Hoffman family. And he's from the CB area, which is in the northwest part of the county, between Paducah and Childress and Tell and all those communities out there. So I'm very much Paducah. I graduated in 1978. I credit Paducah High School for giving me the chance to become a journalist. When I was in high school, I enrolled in what they called the West Wind Stout. That was the student newspaper, and it was published within the Paducah Post, the city newspaper. And we did some television, and also the church that I grew up in had bought television equipment to show our services. So that gave me, until then I planned on being a farmer. I figured I would probably go to South Plains College in Levelland and get my 2 years there, then go to Texas Tech, get the ag degree, come back and take over the farm. But the Lord obviously had different plans for me. And so when I was in journalism class, I knew communications was just how God made me. And I went to Vernon College for the first couple of years into Oral Roberts University. Now, at that time, Oral Roberts was alive, and they were pioneers in Christian broadcasting. And it was a wonderful place to go to school because a lot of the students were involved in the television there, or I had friends that were, and I was on the newspaper staff. At that time, God spoke to me and said, through a minister, and said, you'll interview a lot of spiritual leaders. And at that time, there were a lot of spiritual leaders that came to RU and spoke, including Charles Stanley, who's the pastor of the First Baptist Church in Atlanta. He was one of a number, or Brother Andrew, who wrote the book God's Smuggler, the Watershed Missionary book about going behind the Iron Curtain. They all came, and I interviewed a lot of leaders. Also, we had also when I was growing up here, I was into rodeo a lot. I rode bulls and broncs basically from the time I was 11 to 18. And I was small and had natural balance and had a real bug for rodeo. Well, when I was finishing ORU, I got to cover this prominent rodeo for the Western Horseman magazine. So so all that ended up about 1983 or around in there, and I moved to Fort Worth and started working for the Star-Telegram. I was also a football player in high school, loved sports and all that. And Paducah's a basketball town. I tell people that I grew up on the side of a basketball court. In the 1960s, Paducah had these great teams, and we were in the playoffs a lot. And in fact, Paducah won the state titles in the late 80s and won another one a couple of decades after that. And so sports and rodeo and religion have always been my passion. And it was rooted out of here. I'm very grateful for that. And God just led me down different paths. And I, in the early 80s, in 84, I started working for the Star-Telegram. And in my first year there, living in Fort Worth, I was a reporter for the Star-Telegram with sports. I was a correspondent for Western Horseman magazine for events in the Fort Worth area, and also for Charisma magazine, which was a magazine that was really gaining in popularity and still is around and does really well with evangelical and charismatic and Pentecostal beliefs. And, I had all of those and was blessed with all of those. My life was tremendously blessed for going that route, with my faith. And that happened here. We had the charismatic renewal here in the 70s, and in my church, we had a good pastor that went around which went about it very responsibly, and I was able to go or you. And I tell people, it's like the scripture says, without a vision, people perish. But I was given a vision and shaped about who God made me right here in Cottle County, and I've stayed with that the rest of my life. I've written a rodeo column for the Star-Telegram, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and covered rodeo for them for more than 30 years and written for a number of magazines. I've been blessed to have some really nice awards with that, and just going with that. I still cover religion, and I've been the religion writer as well. I'm blessed that the Paducah Post runs my stories here. I moved back here. I lived in Fort Worth in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And about 2008, my wife and I moved back here. My mother started ailing, and we moved back here in 2008. And I've been the pastor of the First Christian Church almost ever since, and have a freelance writing business. And my columns run in Fort Worth and in Lubbock and Amarillo and different papers, San Angelo, Huntsville, different ones every week. And so, and again, all that was rooted in Paducah. And don't ever think just because you're a small town, you don't matter. Because people that live significant lives, a lot of times they come out of small towns. And a lot of times you can get more individual attention in a small town. I got great individual attention here with teachers like Jane Trent and Jackie Yarbrough, and a principal like John Brinson, who later became our superintendent, John Utley, who was my ag teacher, different ones. And so this was a launching pad, and it was a great launching pad. And I'm forever grateful to grow up in Cottle County.